According to the American Library Association, book censorship is the measure taken to suppress information within a book. Government officials or organizations remove books from libraries, reading lists, or bookstore shelves because they object to their content, ideas, or themes.
Removal of books from the school library affected a form of political and ideological thought control totally antithetical to the First Amendment of the Constitution.
I'd like to specifically get into African American books. Books by Black writers about African American history or other oppression and racism Black people have faced have been excluded from schools. For example, Hidden Figures, written by Margaret Lee Shetterly, a book about Black female mathematicians, was banned by predominantly white Central York High School after parents claimed that their children would be uncomfortable reading literature about race, according to NBC News.
I think book banning is really dangerous. I think that anytime you say, I don't like this story, so I don't think anyone else should have access to it, that's a real problem. But I think book banning a lot of times, especially in modern times, is a lot more about like, I don't want your story to be told, and I think that's a really dangerous thing to say to somebody.
According to the ACLU, these books are banned as a part of broad efforts to censor discussions of race. Black writing in the United States has been treated as dangerous and widely obscene. The greatest Black writers have been feared precisely for their ability to highlight the injustices of African American society with clarity, lyricism, and urgency.
But they have to get it out of our schools, and they have to ban it in our workplaces, and ban it in our states, and ban it in federal agencies, and ban it in our military.
Maya Angelou, African-American poet and civil rights activist, wrote an autobiography describing her early years, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. This book was published in 1969. It chronicles her life from ages 3 to 16, highlighting racism and Black trauma while also evoking the message of inequality between the Black people and white people in American history. This book is deemed to be controversial to many. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings was banned in 1983 by the Alabama State Textbook Committee. It was determined as bitterness and hatred towards white people.
The Color Purple is a 1982 novel written by Alice Walker. It won the 1983 Pulitzer Prize and National Book Award for fiction before getting banned in 1984. Again, it's for sexual and racial content. The Color Purple depicts the lives of African American women in early 20th century rural Georgia. The novel takes place in two distinct settings, rural Georgia and a remote African village. A book suffused with problems of race and racism, banned in Somerville, South Carolina in 2001 after a school board member called it a filthy, filthy book. A book focusing on prejudice against Africans. A book where Black women in this book are far too often victims of violent crimes committed by white men. Is this something to be considered filthy?
And that's something that we need to change, and we need to change it across the country in ensuring that both there's transparency, but not just transparency, that when there is a difference of opinion, that parents have the ability to weigh in and said, these are concepts that we just are not going to either allow the school district to be teaching, or it's not age appropriate for where they are as a student at that level.
Black literature is extremely important to understanding American history and overall of inequality as it exposes people to a new perspective. The banning of these Black books in schools is dangerous because it limits the knowledge of Black history while promoting a whitewashed version of history. Censorship restricts information shaping students' minds on either inaccurate or narrow information. The exclusion of Black writers erases discussions of race in schools across the country. So many voices are being silenced. Wow. Also taking away young Black children's senses of relation to the experiences being illustrated through these stories.
Well, I think since books are the primary way, along with, really skilled instructors are the primary way that we relay information to students, I think that censoring Black books is a surefire way to suppress thought, to suppress creativity, and it stunts learning. One of the dangers of banning Black books when you do not have a comprehensive way to incorporate the history and culture of African Americans in the various curricula, I think that we are really limiting and damaging students by sort of banning one of the pathways to self-discovery, which is, of course, reading Black books. So I think that it's a dangerous precedent to begin to ban Black books, particularly in the current climate, because who's making those decisions and what is their motivating factor for making those decisions? Is that something that Black parents are involved in helping to make that decision? Is that something that they're engaging stakeholders in? So I think it's a dangerous precedent.
Banning Black books in schools has an impact on students and their knowledge of African American history because it actively practices erasure of history and culture.